Good evening. I'm Crimson from Shine a Light in the Dark, and I am here with the amazing Dino from Fear Factory. And he is
Yes.
doing us, yes, he is doing us an amazing honor by coming on here tonight. So I know that you even got stuck in the rain coming over here. So thank you so much for doing that. And I know y'all are fixing to go on tour. Do you mind telling us a little bit about your upcoming tour with Machine Head?
Yes, we have a 5 week tour coming up in the US and Canada with Machine Head. And once that is done, we actually go over to Australia and New Zealand with Machine Head as well. So, Rob Flynn has been a friend of mine for the past 30 years. And he called me up about 6 months ago and said, "Hey, what do you think about doing this tour together?" And I said, "Hell yeah." So, he's a good friend of mine. So, of course, it's going to be a great tour. And I know we're going to have a lot of fun. It does start in January through February, some of the most coldest times that we got coming up here, especially in Canada and
Yeah.
Saskatoon and places like that. It's gonna be cold as hell, but I look forward to it. Can't wait to get on the road, and it's gonna be killer.
Awesome. I guess kind of an odd question, but like, as an artist traveling in those cold months, is there like anything that like does it make traveling harder, like with the ice and kind of everything going on,
I
weather-wise?
mean, it can, it can, but I usually don't worry about that stuff. I let the bus drivers worry about that kind of stuff. Um,
Yeah.
usually we just wake up and we're there. You know what I mean? So if there's any ice on the road or anything that they're battling on the road, a lot of times we don't really feel it or notice it.
Oh, well, that's good. So it's not really it's not one of the mini fires that you actually have to put out kind of thing.
That is correct. The only time we ever really notice it is when we get off the bus.
Okay, fair. Fair. That's um so I guess my first question for you is I like to think of music like as another entity, right? Like it's something that wants to understand us. It's when you find those artists that see you, they don't care who you are, where you're from. The world that they create allows the listener to get immersed in it and to feel seen, safe, heard, and understood. And I know between all four of your bands, like each one was kind of creating a different world for listeners, but what was the main world you always really wanted to like create for them?
Well, one of the hardest things about creating music and creating this type of art and writing lyrics is you want. I mean, personally, it comes from within, right? Music is based off emotions. Uh,
Yeah.
no matter what kind of emotions they are, positive, negative, angry, aggressive, energetic. However you want to look at it, it's based off emotions. And usually, when I write music or when I come up with lyrics, it's usually something that is completely about how I'm feeling at that moment. So it's very selfish how you write it. And then once you're done and you release it out there to the world, you're hoping that people can relate to it. And
Yeah.
that's like the big challenge. Can people relate to these lyrics and this music? Can we provoke that feeling that I felt. You know what I mean? And a lot of times it does. And that's one of the beauties of creating this type of art, that there are people out there who really like dig deep into the meaning, or some of it's universal, so you can like translate it to however you want to interpret it, the lyrics. But most of it we try to make it positive. Okay, there's always a negative side, but we always try the outcome to be very positive, right? Um,
Yeah.
even though the music might sound real aggressive, or it might sound negative, but maybe lyrically it's not. You know what I mean? And we've always had that heavy and that melodic side to us. So the
Yeah.
heavy side was the heavy part was always like the tense moment, like the tension, right? And then when it bursts into the melodic parts, whether it's vocals or guitars or keyboards, the melodic part is usually goes to a major note, which makes it actually more positive. And then that's usually like the release. You know what I mean? And that's
Yeah.
usually where it hits people, where it hits you harder, right? And that's just how we write. And that's just like, it's the yin and the yang of both sides, right? And it's just uh, different types of music that I've been into since I was growing up as a kid, combining those different styles of music and different emotions and, you know, just trying to put a smile on people's faces, especially when I go out there on tour. I'm on stage every night and sometimes when you hit a certain note or just being on stage and everybody's looking at you and they smile at you. And I've had people say, I noticed that you smiled at me. I'm like, yeah, I try to smile at everybody because I want people to be as excited and feel what I'm feeling when I'm up on stage. And of course, earlier you were saying that music is a therapy, and it definitely is. Music, lyrics, art, that's a therapy, and it does hit people differently. Um, and we do get those people that say, hey, I was feeling down. I was suicidal. I was angry. I was in the hospital and went through a major surgery. Your music has helped me get through those tough times. That's one of the number one things that I like to hear.
No, that's absolutely beautiful. And I loved how you were talking earlier, like about like how it was like some people may say it as aggressive, and then it comes into that melodic tone and things like that. And I think that all the aspects of it are so important, right? Because like the moment I get angry is when I realize like injustices have been done against me. And it kind of like is that empowering feeling to fight back. And it really starts that like alchemic process, right? From like that pain to really transform it into like phoenix moments that I've seen like all throughout y'all's albums. Like what is it? Is it timelessness off what is it, obsolete?
Yeah,
The
yeah,
lyrics are lyrically it's not very long, but the lyrics just hit so like deep. And the depth of which like almost all of y'all's lyrics, it paves the way for like I know like me as a listener, right, to feel not alone in those moments. And I think a lot of it is like as a listener, sometimes when we're going through things we feel very alone, so it's the bravery of artists like you that really
yeah.
like
Well,
help us feel not alone.
some people can write lyrics and maybe it doesn't come. One band can write one lyric and another band can write the same lyric. It's really how you present it. You know what I mean? So, like sometimes I could say something and people might get offended, but this next guy could say something and they won't be offended. It's just how it's conveyed. You know what I mean? It's the um, how you project it and the tone and just
Yeah.
the key. I mean, it could be a lot of things. We can hit a sad, we can like hit a sad note, right? And that sad note really provokes a feeling, and that's kind of like things that we focus on when we make records. We focus on those certain notes and certain tones that we know that could possibly um, get people to feel something. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
whether you're shouting, grunting, growling, or singing melodic, all of it's done with passion. And I think that's people could tell that it's real.
Yeah, no, like for sure. And kind of like when you're writing, I know that you do a lot of the lyrical writing, especially I think for all of the bands, correct? For
Yeah,
all
I
four?
contribute. I'm not like the main. I'm not the main lyricist, but I definitely do contribute.
When you what kind of space do you have to go into to do that?
Oh, some places you can go. Sometimes you can go into a third person. Like you could be, it could be fantasy. It could be made up. You know what I mean? But sometimes you got to dig deep and go personal. Um, there's a song on our very first record called "Scapegoat." Now, "Scapegoat" was about something that happened to me. Obviously, I'm Mexican, living in Los Angeles, and back in the early '90s, I was accused of being a gang member, and I got thrown in jail for no reason. And it really affected me back when I was in my 20s, early. Actually, I think I was 20 when it happened, or 21.
Yeah.
And I got accused of something I didn't do. So we wrote a song called "Scapegoat." And sometimes when we play that song live, it actually, I actually relive that moment sometimes. Not all the time, but sometimes. And I actually get a little teary eyed because, like, fuck, I went through that. And, the positive outcome is I'm still here and I'm able to play the songs for you 30 years later. right? That's the positive side of it. But sometimes I still relive those lyrics and that thing that happened to me. And not just that song, but other songs as well. Like a song like Resurrection, which is, you know, something very dark, then something very, the chorus goes into something very positive. Revive, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's something that that really hits a lot of people. I mean, I see a lot of people sometimes when we sing those songs, they cry too. Some of them are joyous. Some of them are, the cries of joy. Some of them are sadness of someone that they might have lost that was really close to them. And those lyrics, um, maybe they were listening to that song when that happened to them. It's all different. Um, People can relate it to all different parts of their life. You know what I mean? Like there's certain records that are like, I remember when I was in high school and I was hanging out with my buddies and we were listening to this song and blah, blah, blah. It's like, or some of them will say, hey, I remember when my mother was dying and I was listening to the song Resurrection and it really helped me get through her death. But it reminds me of her death. So they cry. You know what I mean? And some
Yeah.
people like those feelings. Some people like those feelings and they like how they're able to, and again, that's the power of music, how you can provoke a certain emotion or a certain memory that's memorable, whether it's bad or good.
Yeah. And it's almost like it kind of speaks to your soul in ways, right? So I guess my question for you too would be like during those times, like when it does, like how long does it take you to get out of those spaces? Does it transfer you there to the dark space and keep you there for a little bit, or how do you get yourself out?
The next song.
The next song? Okay, awesome.
the next song the next song can get me right out of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. What advice would you have for like newer musicians that are just starting? Like what's something that you know now that you wish you had have
So,
known sooner?
sometimes you gotta cry. Sometimes it's just inevitable. And that's not anything that cannot also be negative. It can also be positive because it really helps you release those feelings that you might have had bottled up. And this just really helps you get it out. But
Yeah.
but people remember that stuff and they come back. They keep coming back and that's great. And right now, the band is in a inventing process where, you know, I have a lot of new members in the band and we're in a rebuilding process and just doing these last two tours that I just did, um, people are still there, man. They still want to hear those songs. They still want to hear those beautiful vocals. They want to hear those heavy riffs, and they love it. And it helps me every day to get up on stage and play, those songs because those people are counting on you to play those songs. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
to play them, to play them how they're intended to be played, like on the record. And it's also a therapy for me as well. You know what I mean? Um, it 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 definitely seeing their smiles puts a smile on my face, which is therapy for me.
I was going to ask you what's the most cathartic part of the entire process from writing to just, messing around with tunes on your guitar because I know you love your guitar and,
Yes,
we don't even like to separate
guitars,
from it for
guitars,
guitars. Yes, there we go. I'm
guitars,
sorry.
not just.
I'm sorry. I know that they are your babies and you don't like to separate from that at all. So like from just like sitting down, having your own personal jam session to being on stage to talking with fans to any of that, what is the most cathartic part of the process for you?
The minute that the thought comes in that
Okay.
to me art for me is an obsession. Music is an obsession. I'm obsessed with it. I think about it all the time. I cannot not think about it. Even when I'm sleeping, I'm dreaming about music. I'm dream.
I love that.
I wake up with an idea. I go to bed with an idea. I sleep with an idea. I dream the idea, and those are just, to me, that's the most cathartic part of it all. Of just that I can't get it out of my head. Not that I
Yeah.
want to. Not that I want to. I mean, I love that I love that I love it. That's it. And knowing that I get to wake up every day and pick up that guitar, and the minute that pick hits that string, I'm in love.
So I have a kind of crazy question about the pick hitting the string, right? What really first inspired you to start using the 7 string and the 8 string guitar?
It was because of the low tunings, because
Okay.
back in the day, I had a 6 string guitar, and I kind of wanted to get a darker tone where I can
Yeah.
make. It's kind of weird how to explain it, but when I was playing 6 string guitars, there was only so far you can go, but until the strings became like spaghetti, right?
Yeah.
So I wanted to get a darker tone. So when I got the 7 string, I was able to tune lower, and I was able to write these chords that just sounded darker and sad and discordant, and it worked really well with our music, especially when you
Yeah.
go from those dark discordant tones into major tones. So the dark discordant tones were like the darker ones, and the major ones were like the positive ones. And just wanting to create that sound is that's why I went to the 7 string.
No, that's awesome, and I like that because you know I'm not personally a guitar player, obviously, but I can understand like making that the darker tone because it's one of the things I've always loved about y'all's music is the range that you get from it and the way it switches
Mm-hmm.
kind of back and forth in range and from a listener perspective. Totally not a technical perspective. I know nothing about the technical
Like,
part, so I'm so sorry.
yeah, me neither. Me neither. I can't technically explain every chord I write and blah blah blah, but I know people who can. But what I'm trying to say is like sometimes when you tune your guitar higher to standard tuning and stuff like that, sometimes it comes out. How do I say it? Nice. It comes out
Okay.
too nice. And when you tune it down, you tune and you're able to create these darker tones to create this certain vibe and feeling. That's why I did that.
So, like with Fear Factory, right? So I know that the first time you played
Mm-hmm.
for Fear Factory was actually like at your record store, right? Was kind of your first show for Fear Factory? Was that?
Well, it wasn't our first show. No, it wasn't our first show.
Oh, okay.
It was our first show from when the record came out. I worked at
Okay,
that record
okay.
store. I worked at a place called the Rock Shop, which was on Hollywood Boulevard. The address was 6666 Hollywood Boulevard. So it was
Love it.
6666 Hollywood Boulevard. And it was a record store, and I worked there in my teen years. And when our record came out, we played in front of the store, and we sold a lot of cassettes that day. but
So you
but
said that was
before
in your
that, we
teen.
played about.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Well,
I did not mean to
when
interrupt
I
you.
started working at the record store, I was in my teens.
Okay.
Did you? When I started working at
Yeah.
I worked at the record store for a few years. So I was like
Okay.
18, 19, working at the record store. By the time I was like 22, our first record came out.
Okay.
So so that was when I.
So what
But
age?
within that time, um, I didn't have Fear Factory when I started working at that store.
Oh,
I wasn't
okay.
in the band yet. But it just so happened that the time I was working at the store, that I was able to create a few years later. I was able to create Fear Factory and put a record out. So 4 years later, I was able to put a record out and then play in front of the store on the day the record was released.
That had to be a cool memory. Like it almost like the record store became like a rite of passage for you kind of thing.
Yeah, I remember because somebody recorded it and they put it on YouTube, and you could see it on YouTube. Um, that there was a lot of people standing out there, and it caused a traffic jam on Hollywood Boulevard. That the cops eventually came and shut it down.
Oh no, I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's all good.
But for y'all's first record release, though, I mean, that means there was a lot of people there for that to have to happen, right? So that's actually, I mean, so that's good too, right? In a way.
Yeah. Before that, we probably only played about 12 shows total. It's not
Okay.
that many shows.
when did you first like? Because I know that you mentioned that you were still kind of a teen, and in your 20s when Fear Factory first came out. But when did you first realize that that's what you wanted to do for the rest of your life?
Oh, when I was 9 years old. When I was
Okay.
9 years old, I saw ACDC on TV, and I saw Angus
Okay.
Young playing, and I was like, "That's what I want to do. What is he doing? The guitar and blah blah blah." And luckily, my dad had an acoustic guitar laying around. So when I was younger, I picked up the guitar, and I was trying to try to play. It wasn't until I was like 14 that my mother bought me an electric guitar, so I was able to properly learn the songs. Uh, ACDC and Black Sabbath and all that stuff.
What was the first song by ACDC you tried to play?
Highway to Hell.
Oh, okay. Love it. I love it. And so your dad played, so music's kind of like in your blood, right? Because you said dad had an acoustic guitar. So was
Yeah,
music
my
just
dad had an
always a part of
acoustic
life?
guitar. Yeah, my dad had an acoustic guitar and he dabbled with it. He tried to play mariachi music, which is Mexican music. Um, yeah, my one of my brothers played like a marching snare. One of my sisters played like a clarinet, and marching band and stuff like that. Um, so yeah, I guess it was kind of in my blood for sure.
No, I love that. Especially like when you were talking about how like it constantly goes through in your mind. It's like, oh, okay, cool. Like music has just kind of become this thing that like not only are you
Yeah,
painting a world for listeners, but it's become your world too. Like it is your world, right?
yeah, music. It came from everybody in my family. We had a very big family. Altogether, there was 10 of us. Eight.
Okay.
I have four brothers and four sisters. Um, and everybody, whichever room I went to, everybody was playing something different. Whether it was country, whether it was punk, whether it was metal, whether it was rock, uh, pop music, oldies. Like my mother was into Elvis and Beatles and stuff like that, or mariachi music. I kind of soaked it all in. I kind of liked
Yeah.
a little bit of all of it. But it wasn't until I heard like ACDC and Black Sabbath, and then of course Judas Priest and Iron Maiden and Scorpions and things like that, that really got me. That's where I knew that that's the music that was for me. It hit me hard, and I was like, wow. And I just couldn't not. I was like a sponge. I was just trying to find anything that sounded like that or anything that looked cool on a record. I was just all
Yeah.
about it. I was constantly hanging out at record stores, music stores, dreaming about the guitar I wanted, you know, trying to buy records even though I didn't have money. I would convince the guy at the record store, hey, put this record on, let's hear it. And guys would play it at the store. Work the guys that worked there would play the record at the store, so I get to hear music.
Yeah.
I was just trying to get as much of it as I could.
No, that's awesome though. It sounds like you were like I just wanted to absorb everything. And then like with like what is it, Brujeria and
That's
Divine Heresy
that's why it's
and
like, yeah,
Assassino, like
that's why
with
it's
the
like an
other bands.
obsession. It's like
Yeah.
it became an obsession. I'm sorry to cut you off,
Oh
but
no, I'm so
it
sorry.
became an obsession.
Yeah. What do you feel like has been like the most challenging part of that in your life, and what has been the most rewarding part of it?
Well, the most rewarding part of it is definitely, people liking your music and people can relate to it, and all the stories and that you hear of how it affects people. Those are probably the most rewarding parts. The most
Yeah.
unrewarding parts is probably having to be away from home for long periods of time. That's really, missing loved ones. That's really about it.
How do you kind of cope with missing like loved ones and being on the road for so long?
Well, you got to remember, like back in the day when we were touring before there was FaceTime, that was when it was harder. But
That makes
now,
sense.
now in the last 15 years, when there's FaceTime, it was much easier to, actually 10 years, it was much easier to, get through it.
Well,
Because
yeah. No.
go
Sorry,
ahead.
go ahead.
Go ahead.
I'm so sorry. There's a lag, and then I think that I hear a break and I accidentally start talking. So I swear to God, I don't mean to cut you off sometimes. I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
Um, but no, I can completely understand that. Like, I feel like FaceTime and stuff made it a little bit better, like for bands that were traveling. But,
Oh
I
yeah.
guess like even towards the end of tour, right? Like, is that kind of when it gets the hardest?
I mean, I was touring at the time where there was like you'd have to spend like $25 just to make a phone call from Europe. You know
Oh,
what I mean?
yeah.
It was expensive.
I had heard, so when you were talking about like in Europe and stuff, so I heard like kind of like on tour with you, you always have like kind of this mishap of where like something good but bad will happen like every time. Like you kind of have luck with that. So what's like the most like what is like your craziest story that you were like that kind of happened?
I mean, we've been through a lot of stuff. I mean, we've been through bus crashes. We've
Oh
been
no.
through bus fires where literally the whole bus caught on fire. Um, Trailers coming unhitched.
Oh my gosh.
The back of their gears going down the street. There's been all kinds of stuff. There's
Oh
one
my
time where a
gosh.
bus driver was driving and he fell asleep, and literally it was a 2-lane highway, and he fell asleep and just missed a semi, and we were on the other side of the road. So yeah, there's been some crazy moments. There's times you got to. We're from California, so a long time ago we were touring. We were driving a van, and of course we're from California, so we don't know anything about black ice, right?
Yeah.
We don't know nothing. We don't know how to handle it. So a lot of times when you hit black ice, you don't hit the brakes. That's exactly what we did. We hit the brakes and we went
Oh no.
sliding into about, I don't know, 6 feet of snow. We were pretty much covered. The van was pretty much covered. And we had to like dig ourselves out of the snow. And once we got out, we were like, holy shit, how are we going to get this van out? So luckily, there was a semi truck that drove by, and he had a tow hitch on the front,
Oh,
or a pulley, so he was able to
okay.
hook the van and pull us out of the snow. We were able to go on our way. That was like for us California boys, first time seeing that kind of snow was pretty scary. That was like 1993.
Okay. I'm sorry. Like my mind was just trying to build the picture of that happening and then having to like dig the van out of the snow.
Well, I mean, it happens. I'm sure it happens to a lot of people, but it was we're from California, so what do we know? You know what I mean? We don't have to deal
I
with that
live
snow here.
I live in Texas and I live like on the lower end of Texas. So I mean, they try to shut our whole town down just because we get a little ice or like if we get a little sprinkle
Yeah.
of snow because nobody knows how to drive on it here and they'll be like, "Oh no, you got to shut everything down." So I feel that. That's why I was like I
Yeah.
totally feel that on a personal level.
Yeah, but we've
Um
been through a lot of things. We've been through a lot of stuff on tour. Especially when the bus caught on fire. It was like we were lucky that we got out of the bus. Lucky the bus driver was like, "Okay, everybody out. The wheel well is on fire," and so he went and grabbed the fire extinguisher to put the fire out. And when he did it, it was empty.
oh no.
So everybody had to get off the bus. And by the time the fire trucks got there, the whole bus was on fire. And I saw pictures of it the next day, and it was pretty much just a shell of a bus.
Were y'all asleep? Like did everybody get
We
woken
were all
up? Like
sleeping. We were all sleeping, yep. And luckily, the bus driver woke us all up in
oh my
time for
gosh.
us to grab our stuff and get out of the bus.
No, that had to be scary. Like I don't
Very
like
scary.
waking
Very
up
scary.
like I'm here one day waking up on the other side of a semi truck on the other side of the road and then or like seeing the shell of the bus like you
And then
know
one time, our bus driver was driving down the road, and he reached down to grab I don't know, something fell. He's We think it was candy, but it could have been, I don't know, it could have been something else. But he reached down to grab something, and as he did it, he turned the wheel like this, and boom, hit another car.
Oh no.
Yeah, it was pretty scary.
And see, maybe I'm just like, I'm a chicken. Like, I don't know why. Driving just in generally scares me, especially like in Houston traffic and stuff like that. So I'm hearing that and I'm like, oh my gosh, even in a big bus, like there's still, like you're still feeling the damage of it
Yeah.
versus like in a,
One
like in a
time,
littler car.
one one time, our friends in Static X, they were driving down the road, and a pheasant went flying, like a huge fucking pheasant, went flying through the windshield and
Oh
busted
my
through the
God.
windshield and landed like on the couch in the front of the bus. Now, if it was a
Damn.
few feet over in front of the bus driver would have got hit. But luckily, it was on the passenger side, and the bird went through the windshield all the way onto the couch.
Damn. He was like after that window, man. Like strong
He
enough to
probably
go
just didn't
through
see
it.
it.
Yeah.
Probably didn't see it. Probably take it off, went right through it.
God. You know, as I was hearing you kind of just talk about like all those stories, and we were talking a little bit earlier about how like ACDC and stuff was kind of like what inspired you to really want to be a, a guitarist and really follow the life of music. I keep kind of thinking to myself, I don't know why, but like, what would your, inner, like, what would you say to your inner child? Like, how would your inner child feel? Like, if you were to go talk to him and be like, look, this is life today, to that version of yourself, like, how would he even feel about that?
That's a kind of a hard question. I don't know. I mean, I would definitely warn him about the record industry, the music industry, entertainment industry in general. You know what I mean? Um, that's really about it. I would just warn him about certain things.
Yeah.
If I could, if I could go back and tell my younger self, that would be just about it. Don't sign this contract. Don't give away all your rights to your music. Don't do this. Don't do that. You know what I mean?
Do you think he would be super fucking stoked though? Like, just like who he's become? Do you think he'd be able to believe like who he's become today? Like, what? I mean, like, there's got to be that part of you that's just like super fucking stoked at like,
I don't know.
just
Who did I
cause.
become today?
Well, yeah, I mean, like,
I don't really
like when
consider
I think of.
myself a famous person.
Really?
No, maybe a known person in certain genres, maybe a known person, but I never really consider myself a famous person. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm just like go hang out at the bar kind of guy.
And see, I guess like for me, like when I have people that really like made a huge difference in my life. I grew up like in and out of foster care and stuff, and music was my only shelter. And so, like, and the only place that I felt understood. And I guess so sometimes, I guess, like to me, there's that special place in my heart that was like always that seen, felt, heard, and understood space for all my anger, all my rage, and how pissed off I was at the world sometimes, or how pissed off I was at kind of X, Y, and Z that was going on, but also that space that still turned it into this melodic and yet positive space for me. And so, like, even through like Fear Factory's music, like Obsolete was one of the first real albums that I identified with the most. So that was like kind of where my first like actual introduction was to Fear Factory. I know that wasn't y'all's first album, but um so I guess like to me that makes you like really big on my books, if that makes sense.
Well, thank you.
So I appreciate all that you have done, and so yeah.
Yeah, that's one of the things. It's like I'm not really concerned about being famous or anything like that. I'm more concerned about leaving a legacy of music that people can be inspired by or people just love. You know what I mean? That's really more of my concern. I want to write music that's going to last through the test of time,
Yeah.
longer than me.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, maybe I had worded that wrong at the beginning, because I feel like to me that's what fame I don't feel like is important, but like what you were saying is that legacy and the people that I feel like that's more of an energetic currency in its healing and what it does for people than what it's almost like not cash like it has no price. It's priceless. That's the word. I'm like,
Priceless.
what is the word I'm looking for?
No
you
cash.
know,
What?
like no cash. Like it's cashless. Like it's not even like you can't buy that. And I feel like when you were talking about music being real, like you can feel when somebody's soul's like almost being transmitted through the music, even like energetically, and just like, and then the energy in the audience when the musician comes on stage, like that's like the purest energy, like back and forth when you find those artists that are real and authentic and true. And so I love even how you interact with your audience and how you were saying like even the small smiles and even just the reply back to us. I mean, I truly appreciate those small things and the ways that you interact with your fans. I think that that's really awesome.
Yeah, usually when we have time, we usually go to the merch table and we usually sign autographs. But there's a lot of times we don't get to do that, and I actually like doing it because you get to hear people's story. People get you get to have a moment with people, and they tell you what your music means to them, and that's a really gratifying feeling, and that's really what I want to leave behind.
Yeah. When you were doing kind of like with your music, I know that Fear Factory was kind of like your first always primary um project. And I know that we now have Milo. I think Milo's the newest member, right? To Fear Factory right now.
Milo, I'm sorry, say it again.
Isn't Milo's the newest member, right? To Fear Factory
Yeah,
right now.
it's Milo. Milo, yeah, he's the
Me?
newest
Oh
member.
my gosh, I'm so sorry.
It's
Milo, I'm
okay.
so
He
sorry.
doesn't mind Milo either, but it's Milo.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I would never miss. I promise. Mila, I love you. I'm sorry. I did not mean to mispronounce your name.
It's
Please
like
forgive.
Dino.
Okay, Milo. I got it.
It's like
Um.
that's the proper Italian way to say it. It's like Dio, right? You don't see
Okay.
Dio.
Yeah,
You don't
that
you
makes
don't see
sense.
Milo. You don't see Dino. You say Dino, Milo, Dio.
So no, I'm so sorry. Tell him. Tell him I'm so
It's like
sorry. I
no,
apologize.
he's not. He wouldn't be offended. Trust me, he would not be offended. Sometimes we call him Milo too.
But and that was kind of a cool case too. Like speaking of fans, right? Because Milo was originally like one of y'all's fans, correct? That y'all kind of
Yeah,
found,
Milo was
right?
a very well. Is a very big fan of Fear Factory. Yes, before he joined the band, he was a massive fan. Not only like musically getting into the music and lyrics, but he was also the guy who pretty much went down the rabbit hole of looking at all the interviews that we've done all over the years. You know, whether it's in magazines, whether it's on YouTube or wherever. He was that guy who always wanted to learn more about the band members of the band.
Yeah, that that was cool. I can't imagine how cool that was for him to actually have been able to be a part of that. Is when he when he joined the band and y'all started like really like hitting hard with like the tours because y'all been crazy busy. Is that kind of
Oh man, yeah.
did that did that stop kind of your other side projects kind of with the other bands, or did Fear Factory just kind of come back to the forefront, or how does that kind of work out with the juggle between them?
Well, Fear Factory definitely came back to the forefront, and it's hard to juggle those other bands. As a matter of fact, those bands are pretty much put in the back burner because as soon as we're done with this touring cycle, which we should be done about July, we're going to go straight into the studio and do the new record.
Oh, awesome. I'm excited.
So
So when do you project?
at some point, we have to stop touring. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
we've been touring since February this year. We just stopped 4 days ago, and then we start again January 17th. And that's going to take us all the way to June, to the end of June.
Gosh.
So by
Yeah.
July, we'll be in the studio working on a new record.
So when do y'all project the new record to be out the following year?
That's something that the record company's got to figure out.
Oh,
Hopefully
okay.
by November, hopefully by November next year, if not 2025, but there'll definitely be singles out before that.
What is your favorite song currently right now to play live, and why?
Oh, live? Yeah. The current song is probably a song called Freedom or Fire. It's one of
Okay.
those sleeper songs. It's a sleeper song. It's a killer song on the record, and it's great. It's great on the record, and has its place on the record. Sometimes when you take songs out of the record to play them live, it doesn't always fit, right? But
Okay.
somehow, Freedom of Fire really fits with the set list that we're doing right now, and it's my favorite song. It just has this whole different vibe compared to the other songs that we're playing live, and it's got this really cool midsection breakdown that people really like, and so
That's all
I don't
mechanized,
know.
right?
It's No, it's off obsolete.
Oh, it is. I don't know why I was thinking of those. Okay, my bad. I'm so sorry.
No, it's okay. It's okay. It's one of those songs. It's like a deep cut. You know what I mean?
I was thinking obsolete at first, but then I was like, no, it must be off mechanized, and I'm so sorry, and I totally got it wrong. So I'm
It's okay.
sorry.
It's just one of those deep cuts that a lot of people don't really know. But for me, it's just one of those songs that it needed to be played live, and it's great. It works great in the set.
That's What do you feel like you love playing about it most live? Like, I know that you're talking kind of like about the energetic component, but is that like kind of one of your all-time favorite songs, or is that just
It's it's not my all time favorite song. No, it's not my all time favorite song to play live. But you asked me what my favorite
oh
song is
yeah,
to play
no.
live right now.
Oh
But
yes, yeah, no.
it's cool because it starts off with the drums. You know what I mean? It's like, and it's really cool it because we put all the spotlight on our drummer Pete Weber. So we
Mm-hmm.
put all the spotlights on him because he pretty much starts the song with the drums, and then when everything kicks in, people are just like, wow, and it just has this live energy that's undeniable.
Does that favorite song to play live change?
It can, yes, it has. Um,
Okay.
for a long time, one of my favorite songs to play live was a song called "Self Biased Resistor" because
Okay.
it's fun to play. It's killer. It's got a great chorus, um, and people love it.
What's kind of one of those songs that you don't like playing live?
I like playing them all.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, there's no songs that I don't like playing live.
Out of
But
all of y'all's
I take it back. I take it back. There is one song that I don't like playing live, but we haven't
Okay.
played it in many, many years.
What was it?
And I don't,
Am I allowed to ask?
and I don't intend to bring it back either.
Okay.
And
Um,
you want to know what the song is?
of course I do, but I won't ask if I'm not allowed to.
You're allowed to ask me anything.
So what is the song? Because now I
Do you
kind
want
of have to.
Do you want me to whisper it?
Sure. What is it?
It's called "Back the Fuck Up."
Oh, as I get closer to the like, I'm like getting closer.
Now that I said that, everybody's gonna want to hear that song live.
I'm sorry, and that's gonna be my fault. I'm so sorry. I didn't do it.
No need for apologies.
Out of all of y'all's albums, which album was your favorite to create, and
How
which one
you
do you feel?
how, how you gonna make me answer that question? They're all my favorites to create.
Okay,
They were all my
which one
favorite.
was the? Which one had the most interesting? Oh, I can't even say how. Which one did you enjoy most, right? Because then that would be like picking a baby too.
Okay, which was
What
the
are
most?
aspects that
There was
you?
one that was the most hardest to make.
Okay,
Okay, that was demanufacture.
okay,
Not because of the music, it was the recording. So we originally started in a studio in Chicago called Chicago Tracks. This is where bands like Skinny Puppy and Ministry recorded. A lot of industrial bands recorded there. So we get there, and the studio happened to be a piece of shit, and it just was not working. So we had to leave there. We had to go to another studio, and then we went to another studio, and then before we were about to mix, we fired our producer.
Oh,
We
okay.
fired him. Then I had to convince the label, record company, to hire Reese Fulber and Greg Greeley to mix the record. We had to ask for more money, and then we had to get all the recorded tapes, and we had to bring all that stuff all the way back to LA, and we went into a studio in LA, and then we mixed the record. And it was just because of all that money lost and spent and all that time wasted, it was just a difficult record to record.
Yeah. That sounds like right at that time that would make it kind of difficult to record. And I'm sorry I asked you at the beginning to pick one of your babies. I can't imagine actually like thinking about it, how
Yeah,
hard that must
exactly.
be to
How do
pick
you pick
like
your favorite kid? How do you pick your
yeah,
favorite kid?
you can't. Um but so that at least we were able to pick the most challenging kid,
There you go.
right? The other, what do they say about children? The first one makes you think that like everything's gonna be cool, and they're the ones that trick you into having another one, and then they make
Well,
up
the
for all
first,
the.
yeah. Well, the first one was definitely a learning experience. The first album.
What did you enjoy the most about when you? I know, like, is there any kind of nostalgic piece that you really loved about, like, kind of thinking about to the earlier days when you first started? Is there anything that you still wish was more present, or that you kind of were happy to see go?
um, I was happy for all the drama to go, for sure.
Okay, fair.
But that's talking up to now. Like a lot of the dramas behind me, and we're able to be move forward with everything, and because we went through a lot of legal battles and a lot of stuff happened in my career, and so a lot of that's behind me now, and I'm able to move forward into a more positive direction, which is exactly what we've been doing. And the band, it's a rebuilding process, and it's slowly building. And I can't wait to put a new record out so people can hear what we've been working on.
Has it been kind of fun, like rebuilding and like remaking that part of your life again? And like, how has that process been?
It's been amazing. It's been very positive. It's been, like I said, going out there on the road and talking to promoters, booking agents, managers, fans, crew people, and everybody's just really excited and really happy. And so I just been enjoying the ride.
No, I love that. And I'm so excited for y'all and just like everything that's coming up for y'all because y'all have been like super busy. And I know that that's had to have been amazing for y'all too to be back, like going and just really hitting it hard again.
For sure. I mean, that's pretty much we've been a band that's been a road band. We get out there and we tour like nonstop. We're road dogs as they call them. And it feels really good to get back out there and play these songs for these people who really want to hear it.
Yeah, I think that in one of your interviews, I think you referred to yourself as a lifer, right? Like that was just going to be life.
Yes, I didn't want to use that one again, but yeah, definitely a
Oh, I'm
lifer. Like this
sorry.
is this is it's okay. This is like, yeah, it's what I call people who this is it. There's nothing else. This is what they want to do. This is what they work at. This is what they're obsessed with, and that to me is a lifer, and that's me.
At the end of the day, what does music really like at its core essence mean to you?
Life. Music is life to me. Music is love. Music is everything. Every emotion you could think of, it's all of it. Um, I'm obsessed. Like I said, I'm obsessed with it, and I can't get it
Yeah.
out of my head, and it's just there. It's it's
As an
it's like another
artist,
appendage.
yeah. Like as an artist, though, when it becomes kind of your job and what you're, do you feel like it changes any of the way you feel about music or even listen to other music or the impact it has on you?
No, it can changed my perspective on how I listen to music. I hear imperfections, and some of the
Okay.
imperfections in music is what makes it great. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Nothing is nothing is exactly meant to be perfect. Um, but with that being said, I really put a lot into making my records and trying to get them as perfect as possible. um, but it does a little bit. But I usually just try to enjoy music. I just enjoy everything. I try to find the good in everything.
No, I love that, especially because you were talking about the imperfection. Like, because I agree. Like, I think imperfections make us beautiful, and songs and music, and they turn into our masterpieces, right? And
Correct. But some of those imperfections are going to be gone because everything's everything's becoming AI generated. It's definitely a lot of that human element's going to be gone.
how how has that impacted or even affected music today for
Well, we've
y'all?
been talking about that. We've been talking about that stuff forever. I mean, since the beginning of our career, we've been talking about how technology is going to be taking over and how certain things have become obsolete. For instance,
Yeah.
the Writers Guild, people who are writing the scripts for these movies, actors, actors are in fear of their job as well too. Um, there's a lot of things. There's a lot of big changes coming up, and we'll see. We'll see how far it goes.
Has it impacted y'all's career at all, like in the way that y'all produce music, make music, things like that, on a professional side?
Well, well, over the years, of course, technology is definitely, you know, to me, the technology is used as a tool to try to create. Um, it's more on the production side, right? Um, but as far as AI doing music for us and affecting us, that's still remains to be seen or heard.
Okay. Yeah. Um, and I guess I because I want to honor your time. One of my last questions. I have two more, but my next one is what world do you ultimately, we were talking about legacy and leaving something behind. What world do you honestly, like, through it all, want to leave behind for your listeners?
What world?
Yeah, like, remember how I was talking about how, like, the music creates a world for their listeners to go into? What is that final piece that you wish to
Well,
have created for them?
hopefully something with a positive outcome. Hopefully, you know, you can escape. You know what I mean? Sometimes music is an escapism, and people can leave their world to go into your world, or what they think is your world, or whatever they fantasize, or however they relate to the music or the lyrics. Um, I hope it's whatever it is. I hope it's positive, and you can't predict on what's going to happen or how people are going to take it.
Yeah.
You just hope that it's for the better.
Yeah, no, I think that's beautiful. And I think that it's beautiful how, like, through all of it, like, your positivity really shines through about how you want everything to be positive and that you really want to make that positive impact in the world, because I think that that's something that isn't expressed sometimes a lot by souls, like to want to leave that positive legacy and things for future generations to,
Yeah,
to come.
yeah, yeah. Because you want something. I want to create something that's going to last through the for many many years to come. You know what I mean? I want it to last. But who knows? Who knows where we're going to be 500 years from now?
That's true. Um, and so I guess one of my last questions is I work with a lot of at-risk youth, um, who
A lot of what?
at-risk youth. So, like, a youth that grows
You
up
said
in
at
bad,
risk youth.
yeah, at-risk youth. So they're at risk of,
Okay.
essentially, they're in very bad environments, so they're considered a higher risk of, jail. The crime rate's higher in their
Yeah.
environments,
I
things
was
like
just
that.
talking to I was just talking to a friend of mine who he adopted. two babies when they were like 2.5 months old, but they
Oh,
were crack addicted babies. They were born because their mother was doing crack. They were born with crack addiction. So their whole entire lives they were battling addiction. It's crazy
yeah.
that that's in their blood. And but they've also had a lot of problems now that they're in their late teens. They're in um I guess you would call juvenile hall and places like that with troubled teens, troubled
Yeah.
kids, and they're still going through it right now. And it sucks that we had a song called Replica, which was on our second record, Demanufacture, which kind of has something to do with that. Um, he is a product of his environment. He he was born through rape. In other words, his mother got raped, and he was born. So the whole song, he was pretty much saying, "I don't want to live this way," because he's battling a lot of demons, and um, it's uh, kind of like related to what's going on now with youths at risk or at risk youth.
Yeah.
So yeah, but later on, he became the leader of the resistance, as they call it, where he became a leader. So he became a positive role model, and he was able to forget how he was born and how he was conceived through rape, and get past all his demons, and became a leader of this militia.
That's beautiful that he used it. Even though it's not beautiful what happened, but it's beautiful that he used it and turned it into something that was empowering. And even when you were
Yeah,
talking
and so
about,
when people tell me about stuff like that, that their kids, their adopted kids, were born through a crack addicted mother, and all the stuff that they have to go through, I mean, makes you want to cry, you know. But hopefully they get the proper care going through the systems. I know sometimes people can't, but I hope it turns out positive for them.
thank you. No, no, I appreciate that. And for those kids that are struggling and are in the system already, what advice would you give them to even help them, like, see the
Oof.
bigger picture?
Well, when I was a kid and I felt, alone or pissed off or, um, angry at the world, I always went to music. Music was a therapy for me, and that's what really helped me, get through certain times like that. Um, I was, my mother had multiple sclerosis when I was a kid, uh, and to see your mother suffer through that stuff was not very easy. Um, she passed away when I was 15. So, yeah, music helped me get through all that.
I'm so sorry for your loss of that. I can't imagine how hard that was at your age. And with, I think you said there were eight
Well,
of
thank
y'all,
you.
right?
Yes,
I can't imagine how hard that was for you
it
and your
was hard on
brothers
all
and
of us.
sisters. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it was definitely hard on all of us. But for me, it's like I look through music. My therapy was my music. Was music that I was listening to. Because I could escape into that world and try to imagine me being up on that stage and
Yeah.
my music helping other people.
And that's beautiful because it kind of came full circle to where that's exactly kind of what happened. What's, you know, where your
Yeah,
life
and
ended
we
up,
wrote we
right?
actually wrote a song. We actually wrote a song called "The Final Exit,"
Okay.
and this song is about, it's a pretty emotional, heavy song, and it's about assisted suicide, people who are terminally ill and who they don't want to live that way anymore, and they have it's assisted suicide. It's called the Final Exit Network, and it still exists. Um, And we wrote about it because, I see some of these people who are suffering, who are terminally ill, and they just don't want to live this way anymore. And it reminds me of my mother. So we wrote that song kind of based off that, and it's pretty heavily emotional song.
Yeah, I bet that's one of those songs that take you back to that space, kind of like we were talking about how music can transform us back to time and space. I bet that's one of those songs that still kind of transforms you back kind of into that space.
Yeah, it reminds me of my mother, and sometimes I cry when we actually play that song live, right? So if you see me hiding behind my hair, it's probably because I'm crying
Yeah.
during that song. But but as far as kids, troubled kids, I mean, for me it was about music, and also I like sports a lot. I like baseball. So I was really, really into baseball and playing baseball, and that helped me a lot too.
No, and thank you so much. I appreciate you for sharing and just being so vulnerable throughout the interview and just everything. Um, so thank you so much. Is
Oh, no problem. Thank you for this different interview.
I hope different in a good way though. My heart just went
Yes,
dum.
different different questions, different questions for sure. Stuff that I never really talked about as much. I mentioned stuff here and there, but not did a whole interview with all these type of questions. But yeah, I hope this can help other people to talk about it too, um, or people who want to listen to your podcast. And I'm sure there's other interviewers that probably gave some really good insight about how they deal with certain things.
Yeah, no, thank you so much. I appreciate you. And is there anything that you want to let fans know before you go? Is there anything else you want to let them know?
The social media sites, go to fearfactory.com and go see what's.
Awesome. Yes, guys, and also too, if you've been living in a cave for the last, 33 years and you don't know who Fear Factory is, I will leave all their links in the description below so that y'all can make sure you check them out. And thank you so much, Dino. I really appreciate you, and I hope you have a wonderful night. And thank you
Thank
again.
you.